The world has used me so unkindly. I fear it has made me suspicious of everyone." Those words were written by one of the most important scientists you've probably never heard of. Not by a professor, not by a university scholar, not by a man whose name fills history books, but by a poor woman who spent her life searching dangerous cliffs for fossils, simply to keep her family alive. Her name was Mary Anning, and without ever intending to, she helped change humanity's understanding of life on Earth. Yet for generations, history almost forgot her. History remembers kings. It remembers queens. It remembers famous scientists whose names became legends. But every so often, history quietly leaves someone behind. Not because they weren't important, but because they didn't fit the world they were born into. Mary Anning was one of those people. Imagine waking before sunrise. Your clothes are still damp from yesterday's rain. Your stomach is empty. The sea below is roaring. Towering cliffs rise above your head, cracked and unstable after another violent storm. Most people would stay as far away from those cliffs as possible. A 12-year-old girl walked toward them. Every morning. Not because she was fearless, because she had no choice. Her father had died. The family's income disappeared with him. And hidden inside those cliffs were strange stones and fossils that wealthy visitors sometimes bought for a few precious coins. Every fossil meant food. Every empty basket meant another day of uncertainty. This wasn't adventure, it was survival. Mary grew up in the small seaside town of Lyme Regis on England's southern coast. Today it's famous for fossils. 200 years ago, it was simply home. Her father, Richard Anning, earned extra money collecting what people then called curiosities. Beautiful shells, strange stones, ancient bones. Nobody fully understood what they really were. Collectors bought them to decorate cabinets. Children played beside them. Few imagined they were looking at creatures from a world that had vanished millions of years before humans existed. Richard taught Mary how to spot them, how to read the cliffs, how to search after storms. Lessons that would become far more valuable than anyone could have imagined. Then, tragedy struck. Richard died unexpectedly when Mary was still a child. The family was left with debt, very little money, and almost no way to survive. The cliffs became more than a place to explore. They became the family's livelihood. Every morning, Mary climbed paths where falling rocks had already killed experienced collectors. She knew the danger. She climbed anyway, because hunger can be stronger than fear. The sea has a strange habit. It destroys, but it also reveals. Every winter storm ripped away enormous sections of the cliffs. Entire walls of ancient rock collapsed onto the beach below. To most people, the storms brought destruction. To Mary, they brought possibility, because every landslide exposed rock that no human eyes had seen for millions of years. She learned something remarkable.
Good
The
day.
cliffs spoke. The shape of the rock, the color of the clay, the way certain stones cracked after heavy rain. Little by little, without books, without teachers, without ever entering a university, Mary taught herself to read the language of the earth. The cliffs became her classroom. Every storm became another lesson. Every fossil became another page. She didn't know it yet, but she was quietly becoming one of the greatest fossil experts in Britain.
Is quite perfect.
Then
Don't
came
you
the winter
agree?
of 1811. For
Found by
days,
some local
powerful
fishermen, I
storms
believe.
battered the
Hardly
Dorset
worth
coastline.
mentioning.
The sea was relentless. Rain hammered the cliffs. Huge sections of rock thundered onto the beach below. When the skies finally cleared, Mary and her older brother Joseph did what they had done countless times before. They went searching. At first, Joseph noticed something strange protruding from the mud. A skull, long, narrow, filled with sharp teeth. It looked almost like a crocodile. But something wasn't right. The eyes were too large. The shape was unfamiliar. No one had ever seen anything like it. Most people would have sold the skull and walked away. Mary couldn't. She became convinced the rest of the creature was still hidden inside the cliff. So she returned. Again, and again, and again. For weeks, she chipped away at the rock, in freezing temperatures, with simple tools, one careful strike at a time, until slowly, a spine emerged, then ribs, then enormous paddle-like limbs. Finally, an entire creature lay before her, almost perfectly preserved. The world had never seen anything like it, and neither had science. Imagine standing on that beach in 1811. There were no dinosaur museums, no documentaries, no books explaining prehistoric reptiles. In fact, the word dinosaur would not even exist for another 30 years. People believed they already understood God's creation. The natural world seemed complete. Then a young woman uncovered an animal unlike anything anyone had ever imagined. News spread quickly through Britain. Collectors arrived first, then artists, then geologists. Soon, some of the country's most respected scientists were traveling hundreds of miles to a small fishing town for one reason: Mary Anning. They wanted to see the impossible creature with their own eyes. Some argued it was simply an unusually large crocodile. Others believed it was a giant fish. A few insisted the skeleton had somehow been pieced together from several different animals. The discovery created arguments across Britain's scientific community. But as more fossils emerged, the evidence became impossible to ignore. The Earth had once been home to creatures that no longer existed. Today, we call that animal an ichthyosaur. Back then, it represented something even more important than a spectacular fossil. It represented doubt. If one entire species could disappear, could others? And if the Earth had once looked completely different, how old was our planet really? Without intending to, Mary had helped open one of the greatest scientific debates of the 19th century. But this was only the beginning. Over the following years, Mary continued returning to the cliffs, storm after storm, winter after winter. She uncovered fossil fish unlike anything previously known. She found ancient flying reptiles. Then, in 1823, she made another astonishing discovery: a nearly complete skeleton of a plesiosaur. Even by today's standards, the creature looks extraordinary. A tiny head, a body like a turtle, 4 powerful flippers, and a neck so impossibly long that several leading scientists accused the fossil of being fake. Surely no animal could look like that. Some believed different skeletons had been assembled together. Others claimed the proportions were simply impossible. Mary said nothing. She didn't need to. The fossil spoke for itself. Years later, more discoveries proved she had been right all along. Again, evidence won, not reputation, not titles, evidence. By now, something remarkable had happened. The world's leading geologists had begun seeking Mary's opinion. Not because society suddenly respected women, because she kept being right. Visitors quickly realized she possessed an extraordinary gift. She could read the cliffs almost instinctively. She recognized tiny fragments of fossil bone that experienced collectors stepped over without noticing. She understood anatomy through observation rather than formal education. The cliffs had become her university, the sea, her professor. Every discovery deepened her understanding of a world that no human being had ever witnessed. One geologist later admitted that Mary understood fossil specimens better than many trained academics. Others quietly relied on her expertise while publishing their own research. That is one of history's uncomfortable truths. The people writing the scientific papers often depended on the woman who could never write them herself. Mary lived in a world where knowledge alone was not enough. She was poor. She had received very little formal education, and she was a woman. The Geological Society of London, the most influential scientific institution in Britain, did not allow women to become members. Imagine changing an entire scientific field, while never being allowed into the room where your discoveries were discussed. Her fossils traveled to London. She did not. Her discoveries appeared in journals. Her name often appeared only briefly, if at all. Many scientists respected her deeply in private correspondence. Some visited repeatedly because they trusted her judgment more than anyone else's. But public recognition moved much more slowly. History has always been generous with praise, just not always to the right people. Yet Mary never stopped learning. Whenever she could borrow books, she studied them carefully. She taught herself geology, comparative anatomy, scientific illustration. She dissected modern fish and cuttlefish to better understand the ancient animals emerging from the cliffs. Every new fossil answered one question, and created 10 more. She wasn't simply collecting fossils anymore. She was solving mysteries that had remained buried for hundreds of millions of years. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing understanding. And perhaps that is why history nearly overlooked her. Because while others were busy building reputations, Mary was busy uncovering the truth. By the 1830s, Mary Anning was no longer just a local fossil collector. Her reputation had spread across Europe. Scientists, aristocrats, and curious travelers made the journey to Lyme Regis, hoping to meet the woman whose discoveries were reshaping geology. Many left with fossils. Most left with something else: respect. Even those who had once questioned her conclusions found themselves returning for her opinion. Because Mary possessed something no university could teach: experience. She had spent thousands of hours reading the cliffs, thousands more carefully uncovering creatures that had remained hidden for millions of years. She understood the rocks almost as if they were speaking to her. Yet respect did not always pay the bills. The fossil trade was unpredictable. One remarkable discovery might support her family for months. Then, nothing. Weeks without a significant find meant weeks without meaningful income. The woman, helping rewrite the history of life on Earth, still worried about how she would survive the winter. And after decades of climbing unstable cliffs, her body began to fail her. In the 1840s, Mary was diagnosed with breast cancer. The illness slowly took away the strength that had carried her across dangerous coastlines for most of her life. For the first time, the woman who had spent a lifetime searching could no longer search. It was during these final years that something quietly began to change. Several of Britain's leading geologists organized financial support to help her. Others spoke publicly about the importance of her work. One of them, Henry de la Beche, who had known Mary since childhood, even created a famous painting of prehistoric life inspired by her discoveries, and used prints of it to raise money for her. Recognition was finally arriving, but it had arrived painfully late. Among the handful of surviving letters Mary wrote is one line that reveals just how exhausting her life had become. She confessed that, "The name of fossils makes me sick." Not because she had stopped loving discovery, but because every fossil represented another negotiation, another customer, another struggle to earn enough money to live. In another letter, she wrote words that are impossible to forget. "The world has used me so unkindly. I fear it has made me suspicious of everyone." Those aren't the words of someone chasing fame. They are the words of someone who gave everything and spent much of her life wondering whether the world would ever truly see her. Mary Anning died on the 9th of March, 1847. She was only 47 years old. After her death, the Geological Society of London published a tribute in her honor. Ironically, the same institution that had never allowed women to become members during her lifetime now acknowledged the extraordinary scientist they had lost. History was beginning to catch up. Slowly, very slowly. Today, if you walk through one of the world's great natural history museums, you will almost certainly stand beneath creatures whose story began on those cliffs at Lyme Regis. Children stare in wonder. Scientists continue to study them. Millions admire them every year. But very few pause to ask the simplest question: who found them? Mary Anning did far more than discover extraordinary fossils. She helped transform an entire scientific worldview. Her discoveries became part of the growing body of evidence that showed Earth was unimaginably ancient, that creatures had appeared, disappeared, and that extinction was real. Decades later, young naturalists, including Charles Darwin, would study geology in a scientific world already transformed by discoveries like Mary's. She did not work with Darwin, nor did she directly shape his theories, but the world of evidence he inherited had been expanded by the fossils she brought to light. There is one final story often told about Mary. Many people claim the famous tongue twister. She sells seashells by the seashore, was inspired by the young woman who spent her life selling fossils beside the sea. It's a beautiful story, but historians have never found convincing evidence that it's true. And perhaps that's fitting, because Mary Anning doesn't need legends. The truth is already extraordinary. A poor girl, with little formal education, changed science forever. Not through wealth, not through status, not through power, but through relentless curiosity. The ability to notice what everyone else walked past, and the courage to keep climbing the cliffs, even when the world below seemed determined not to notice. History remembers the discoveries. Hidden Chapters remembers the discoverer. Because history is never truly finished. Every generation has the chance to uncover another forgotten life, another overlooked voice, another hidden chapter. This was one of them. Hidden Chapters. History.